Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? It's time to take a look at your reactions to the previous video that I did on the iPhone XS. But before we get into that, I did want to state right off the bat in this video that this was filmed before the Apple event. This is just a fun way for us to see what you really wanted to see out of the phone. And then, of course, you can come back to this video, jump into the comment sections down below, and talk about whether or not what you wanted in the phones actually arrived. And if it didn't, maybe you can voice out some of your frustrations about it. Josh is loving being able to talk about iPhones. So this statement, while somewhat true, is not the whole story. I just like everything. I did use an iPhone X for a little while, and even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the full screen gestures, I had a good time with it. It was fine. There was nothing wrong with the experience, but I'm not using an iPhone X now. A few comments were just literally lists of all of the different things that you wish that the iPhone had, and unfortunately we may not be getting a lot of those things, but it's fun to at least imagine what a perfect iPhone would look like. Some of the lists were just massive. No notch, Touch ID, headphone jack, expandable storage, dual SIM, a true file manager, USB-C, and you know what? I pretty much agree with all of these because these are all features that we can enjoy in other smartphones. But if you're locked into the Apple ecosystem, I can see why it's really frustrating that there are certain things that are not available now. I want the big display, a resolution bump to near Quad HD, 120Hz refresh rate, faster wireless charging, improvements to Face ID, and a stronger wall charger included in the box. This one is pretty interesting because the stronger wall charger, I think that is something that the iPhone could use, is faster charging in general, because the battery life on iPhones, at least historically from my experience, have not been amazing, and we have a lot of great battery life coming from Android phones right now, like the Note 9, even from the BlackBerry phones. It's pretty obvious that batteries are starting to get better, or rather power consumption is starting to get better. And of course, Apple is good at that, but it would be nice to be able to top up the phone really quickly when you need some power. This list is just way too long. I'm not going to go through all of them, but from what it seems like, there are a lot of UI gripes that you have when it comes to iOS in particular, because a lot of this list of 25 different items has to do with a lot of user interface stuff, like a dark mode, split screen, picture-in-picture, multi-window. Those are all kind of in the same, most of them were kind of in the same category. They're all about multitasking, and multitasking did show up a number of times in the comment sections as well. After all, this comment right here kind of hits it right on the nose. This is what my usage looks like on an Android device. I tend to have YouTube playing in the background all the time because I watch a lot of videos, and as far as productivity goes, like, no one is going to argue that an iPhone is incapable of getting a lot of different work and play tasks done, but being able to do more than one of those tasks all at once at the same exact time would be pretty nice, and it is an experience that Android has had for a while with multi-window or dual screen or dual window or even dual apps from Chinese phones. It's something that Android users have been enjoying for quite a while now. Speaking of that display, there was a lot of talk about 120Hz refresh rates, and I think this is a trend that is coming up. So obviously there are a lot of hardcore gamers out there who like to use their phones for gaming, and having a high refresh rate just makes everything look a little bit more crisp. The other reason why this is kind of important to mention is because app developers, or game developers in particular, do tend to gravitate to iPhones and iOS, at least at the beginning of the release cycles. So it's pretty important to have these games available, because if they're going to show up on iOS, they're going to show up on other platforms. And of course, Android already has some phones with 120 Hz. This is one that I'm really into because I miss the home button on the iPhone X. It's something that I really griped about during my 3 weeks of usage on that phone. Basically, I just am not a big fan of the home screen gestures, the full screen gestures rather, because it just doesn't feel all that natural, and it just seems like you have to pay more attention to the device in order to do certain functions, and I don't think that that should be the case across the board. Now, to be fair, that little bar on the bottom does make it easy to swipe left and right to get between different applications quickly, but at the same time, it's just something you have to get used to, and I think if you're used to the nav bar, or even used to a home button like a lot of people in the comment sections were, then it is an adjustment that takes a little bit of extra mind. If the display is everything right now, and that notch is supposed to provide even more screen real estate, then why not do more with it? But like I said in the last video, it doesn't look like Touch ID is going to be returning anytime soon, let alone an in-display fingerprint sensor. The reason why is because Android is adopting it like crazy, and given the trends and given how Apple has been evolving their products over the last couple of years, it doesn't seem like they're going to jump onto that trend anytime soon. But if you don't get a fingerprint reader, maybe you just get a more improved Face ID. But in this particular comment, I think it's a little bit hard to have Face ID without the notch. Perhaps you can take off the two sides where there's some extra screen there and just have a bar at the top, but that's not really the point of the notch to begin with. You need to have even more screen real estate, or at least that's what Apple wanted when they created the notch. But the other reason why the notch is there is to house all of the bits and pieces that make Face ID possible. And kind of putting it to the point, this particular commenter said the new phones just feel like they are limited. limited. And I don't blame you for thinking that. There are phones out there that try to be everything to everyone, and not all of them really succeed at doing that. They always seem to falter in any one particular category. As far as the trends are going right now, we're not going to get that headphone jack back. We're not going to get USB-C, even though Apple themselves are saying USB-C is the future, but they're still sticking to the Lightning port. And maybe we're not going to be getting a display that has a fingerprint reader in it anytime soon either. I kind of understand where this sentiment is coming from, because in places like Asia or Europe, dual SIM phones can be really popular and can be incredibly useful. And if the iPhone is the most common phone in those markets, why not have a dual SIM option? It is something that I find a little bit perplexing, especially for those particular markets. Of course, we have to end it all with price and whether or not this phone is going to be worth it. A lot of people want that reasonable price point, but it might be difficult to actually get it with the phone that has the most features. Yes, there is going to be a smaller iPhone. It may not be an iPhone 10-like device. It might be something different. Maybe it won't have the dual cameras on the back, and maybe it'll be missing some of the features that you want out of the bigger devices. But it will be a cheaper phone, so maybe you're going to get what you pay for. So while I completely get why all of these price point comments are hoping that the phone could be less than $700 or $600, it's just not something that we're going to be seeing moving forward with smartphones, especially as they become more and more premium. And yes, you can argue that a phone that is over $1,000 but doesn't have a headphone jack and still uses a proprietary Lightning cable, it might be a little bit hard to sell, but I am really excited to see what the new iPhones are going to have and what Apple is going to bring next. So you can get some opinions from myself, either here or over at my channel at youtube.com/Joshua Vergara, but we are also going to have plenty of coverage on the iPhone here on Pocketnow, as we're going to have a special YouTube live show that's going to be done right after the event up in Cupertino. And then you can also see what I'm up to over at my channel at youtube.com/Joshua Vergara, where I plan on having my own reactions as well. Subscribe to both of those channels, and then make sure you drop some likes on the videos and also get into the comment sections to make your voices heard. And with that, we'll see you after the iPhone event tomorrow. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.